Hello and welcome back. We are doing 30 days of brain health tips, so a tip a day, and we are on day 21. I'm Dr. Tatiana. I'm a board certified chiropractic neurologist, and today we're actually talking about the importance of making sure that we have good carbohydrate metabolism. Now, we've discussed in a previous tip the importance of making sure that your cholesterol was in a good range, and of course that would be assessed by looking at blood. Now, at the same time, if you are looking at blood, you can also have your doctor, which usually they probably would order, is a fasting blood glucose. And so looking to see what that is, they might even be looking at what's called hemoglobin A1C, which is just another biomarker that helps us better understand how much how much glucose is hanging out in the blood in like a 3 to 4 month period, where the fasting glucose is just something that can be seen generally, within like a 12-hour fast, sort of what's your sugar levels in your bloodstream after, 12 hours of basically not eating. And it's a really good indicator of what might be going on metabolically. And this is really important because our brain function can be really affected by what's going on with our carbohydrate metabolism. You see, our brain requires constant fuel. Our brain really never sleeps, and it consumes about 20% of our energy per day just to keep it up and running. It's kind of like keeping a car always sort of on, maybe in neutral, and of course sometimes then shifting into gears, but never really turning that car off. So you're going to constantly need to be having some kind of fuel source going into that vehicle even if it's in park and it is the engine's on. And this is what happens in the brain. And so sometimes when people start having carbohydrate metabolism issues, for example, they're starting to become insulin resistant. They're kind of starting to walk down that path of metabolic syndrome, and eventually, if they don't do something, they can become type 2 diabetic. So that's sort of the ultimate extreme part of it. But even in the beginning stages of insulin resistance, what that means is that the sugar is not getting out of the blood, so the blood sugar levels will be high. You'll see that on blood work, and that means it's not getting into the tissues. So body tissues like our muscles and various tissues, but also into the brain. And so a lot of times people can experience brain fog, fatigue, the inability for the brain to function, concentration, things like that are just really metabolically demanding activities, because there's just not enough sugar or fuel getting into those brain cells to continue those operations. So it is important that we take a look at what's going on in our blood and take a look at those biomarkers. So if you're scheduled soon to get some blood drawn, please make sure your doctor is looking at carbohydrate metabolic factors like fasting glucose, or maybe even the hemoglobin A1C, or perhaps some other tests that they would like to look at for you. So definitely have a conversation there. And remember, if your blood work is more than 3 months to 6 months old, it is time to get some new blood work, right? To be able to make more accurate determinations of what's going on right now. Because what was happening 6 months ago may not necessarily be going on right now. So it is important to have that looked at. And thankfully, these tests are rather inexpensive, so they can be easily done. So that is your brain health tip for today, is to just have that mindfulness awareness that it is super important that we think about our carbohydrate metabolism. We want to make sure that we are making sure that we're not becoming insulin resistant. This happens when we start to consume high carbohydrate meals. So in a particular meal or over a whole day where our carbohydrate content is really high, and therefore that's just going to shift the scales metabolically internally and cause our tissues to become resistant to what they say insulin, which means that our glucose is not entering into the cells, and which that means that our brain is not getting the fuel source it needs. Okay, so if you think that that's something that's going on for you, then what you can start to do is just do a food journal. There's some apps, or you could do a paper and pen and just write down what you've been consuming, and then look up how much carbohydrate content is in those foods or in those meals to get a gauge of how much carbohydrates you're consuming. And then talk to your doctor about these concerns and discuss with them the importance of making sure that you're not getting into those metabolic pre-diabetic states. All right, so homework for today is mindfulness, awareness, but also maybe a food journal. I will see you tomorrow for more brain health tips. Till then.